My name is Brielle Carter. At my cousin's engagement dinner, my aunt smiled and said, Brielle's still between jobs. The whole table laughed. I didn't. Then my cousin's fiancé looked at me, paused, and asked one question. Wait, are you the Brielle Carter? Nobody understood why he asked, until he turned his phone around, and suddenly, no one at the table wanted to make eye contact anymore. I almost didn't attend my cousin's engagement dinner. Family gatherings usually ended the same way. Someone would ask what I did for a living, and someone else would answer for me. Still, my mother begged me to come, so I said yes. The moment I arrived, I knew exactly where I stood. Everyone else sat around the main dining table. My seat was tucked near the kitchen doorway. When I looked down, my place card read, Brielle, between jobs. I quietly folded it and slipped it into my purse. I had a feeling I'd need it later. My Aunt Monica Hayes proudly introduced everyone. This is my daughter, Sloane. She's in corporate marketing. My nephew's an attorney. My brother owns a construction company. Then she pointed at me. And this is Brielle. She smiled. She's still figuring things out. The table chuckled. I stayed quiet. A few minutes later, Sloane's fiancé, Landon Brooks, smiled politely. So, Brielle, what kind of work do you do? Before I could answer, Aunt Monica laughed. Oh, nothing permanent. She never sticks with anything. Everyone nodded, as if they'd heard the story 100 times, because they had. It wasn't just one dinner. For years, my family had introduced me the same way. The unemployed cousin. The creative one. The one who can't keep a real job. Eventually, people stopped asking me. They simply believed them. I glanced toward my mom, Elaine Carter. She knew the truth. She always had. But she stared quietly at her plate. Avoiding conflict had become her survival skill. Watching her stay silent hurt more than Aunt Monica's jokes. Landon looked back at me. He was still waiting. I smiled. I design medical products. Aunt Monica rolled her eyes. She means little plastic gadgets. Nothing people actually know about. A few relatives laughed again. Landon didn't. Instead, he leaned forward. What kind of medical product? I answered honestly. A pediatric IV safety connector. For a second, he stopped chewing. Then he slowly put his fork down. Something about those words caught his attention. Landon frowned thoughtfully. A pediatric connector? He repeated the words to himself. Then he looked directly at me. Can I ask you something? I nodded. What was it called? The entire table suddenly became very quiet. I calmly answered, SafeLatch. Landon's eyes widened. He immediately reached for his phone. My aunt laughed nervously. Oh, she's making it sound more important than it is. But Landon wasn't listening anymore. He was already searching for something. And for the first time that evening, someone else at the table looked more nervous than I was. Landon unlocked his phone. He typed only one word. SafeLatch. Then he opened the first result. His expression changed completely. He looked at me, then back at the screen. Landon looked up. Can I ask your full name? I smiled politely. Brielle Carter. He blinked twice, then whispered, I knew it. The smile disappeared from his face. He slowly turned his phone around. On the screen was a public patent record. At the top, under Inventor, was my full name. Nobody reached for their food. Nobody spoke. My aunt forced a laugh. There must be another Brielle Carter. Landon calmly shook his head. No. He scrolled farther down. There was my inventor photo, taken years earlier, at a medical innovation conference. Aunt Monica's smile faded. Landon looked around the table. Do any of you know what this device does? Nobody answered. He quietly explained, it prevents pediatric IV lines from disconnecting. Our hospital network still uses it. The room suddenly felt much smaller. Sloane quickly interrupted. It's just a tiny plastic clip. Landon looked at her. No. It's a regulated medical device. There is a difference. For the first time, someone corrected my family. Landon continued. My company renewed a multi-million-dollar hospital contract because this product met every safety requirement. Then he looked back at me. You designed that? I simply nodded. Nobody laughed anymore. Aunt Monica tried to recover. Well, companies usually put lots of names on patents. Landon gently corrected her. Not inventors. Inventorship is legally documented. You can't add someone's name as a favor. Her face turned bright red. I glanced toward Sloane. She wasn't surprised. She looked scared. She grabbed her wine glass, but her hand was shaking. A few drops spilled across the tablecloth. She wasn't worried about me. She was worried about something else. No one finished dessert. Conversations became awkward. People suddenly avoided looking at me, as everyone stood to leave. Landon quietly walked beside me. Then he asked, "Can we talk? Somewhere your family can't hear us?" I had a feeling. The biggest secret hadn't been revealed yet. Landon waited until everyone else went back inside. Then he quietly said, "Brielle, I didn't recognize you. I recognized your name." That sentence told me this conversation was about to become much bigger than dinner. Landon took a slow breath. I manage product compliance. My team reviews every medical device before hospitals renew contracts. He looked me straight in the eyes. I've seen your patent. More times than I can count. For the first time, someone knew me before my family defined me. He shook his head. Your connector isn't just another product. It's part of pediatric safety protocols. If it ever failed, children could get hurt. Hearing that reminded me why I'd spent years fighting for every design detail. Then Landon surprised me. Were you ever partnered with Sloane? I frowned. No. Why? He looked uncomfortable. Because she told me she helped develop that device. My heartbeat instantly changed. 8 years earlier, I'd asked Sloane for one small favor. Not money, not engineering help. Just a simple presentation for investors. She laughed, then said, "I'm not wasting my weekend on your little plastic toy." I'd never asked again. Landon pulled out his phone. I shouldn't show you this, but I think you need to know. He opened Sloane's resume. One sentence caught my eye. Contributed to the commercialization of a family-owned pediatric safety device. I stared at the screen. That wasn't true. When I got home, I unlocked an old encrypted folder. Every prototype sketch, every email, every design revision was still there. Each file carried the original date. Truth leaves timestamps. Lies don't. I opened my oldest messages. There it was. The email I'd sent Sloane years ago. Can you help with my presentation? Her reply came 3 hours later. No thanks. I don't think this project is going anywhere. I quietly smiled. I'd just found my first piece of evidence. Then I noticed something else. Months later, Sloane had emailed my startup without copying me. She introduced herself as Brielle's business advisor. I had never given her that title. She'd given it to herself. Now everything finally made sense. I leaned back in my chair and opened one final folder. Inside were messages from my Aunt Monica. She had contacted my startup herself, not to congratulate me, but to ask whether Sloane could receive a percentage, because family deserves to benefit together. I closed my laptop. Tomorrow, I wasn't going to argue. I was going to let the document speak. The next morning, my phone rang. It was Landon. His voice sounded different. Brielle, our HR department has started asking questions. They're verifying Sloane's experience. The truth was finally leaving the dinner table. I didn't ask Landon to help me. I simply said, tell them to verify everything. No opinions. No family stories. Just documents. Facts had always protected me better than emotions. 2 days later, Landon called again. The patent office confirmed everything. You're the sole inventor. There are no other contributors listed. For years, my family ignored the public record. Now strangers were reading it carefully. Sloane tried explaining herself. I never said I invented it. I only helped. HR asked one simple question. Can you provide documentation? She couldn't. Silence became her only answer. I forwarded only 3 emails. The first, asking Sloane for presentation help. The second, her refusal. The third, her private email introducing herself as my business advisor. Nothing was edited. Nothing needed explaining. The timeline spoke for itself. Then another email surfaced. This one wasn't from Sloane. It was from Aunt Monica. She had written directly to my old startup. As Brielle's aunt, I believe Ashley deserves a family share. She mocked my career in public, while privately asking for my success. No one at the company ever replied. If you've ever watched someone's own words expose them, comment, the receipts never lie. That evening, Mom came to my apartment. She quietly admitted, I always knew you built it alone. I looked at her. Then why didn't you ever say anything? She lowered her eyes. I thought keeping peace was protecting everyone. It wasn't. Landon met with Sloane privately. He didn't accuse her. He simply placed the verified documents on the table. Then he asked, why didn't you just tell me the truth? She couldn't answer. Sometimes, one honest question hurts more than an argument. Aunt Monica insisted on another family dinner. She said, we need to clear up this misunderstanding. I agreed. Not because I wanted revenge, because I was finally done protecting their lies. I walked into the house carrying one small folder. Inside, the patent record, the original emails, and the place card that read, between jobs. For years, they had controlled the story. Tonight, they were about to hear mine. Everyone sat down. Nobody touched the food. I reached into my purse and placed the old place card in the center of the table. Brielle, between jobs. Then I laid my patent certificate beside it. I quietly said, you were right. I don't have a job. I own one. The room fell completely silent. I opened my folder. No speeches, no accusations, just documents. The original patent, licensing agreements, prototype dates, emails. Every page told the same story. I'd built SafeLatch alone. No one at that table could honestly deny it anymore. Sloane looked down at the table. Tears filled her eyes. Finally, she whispered, I never invented it. I just let people believe I helped. Then she looked at me. I thought admitting the truth would make me look ordinary. For the first time, she stopped pretending. If you've ever learned that the truth always outlasts a lie, comment, the truth wins. My aunt tried one last time. We were only proud of Ashley. I calmly slid another paper toward her, her email, the one asking my startup to give Sloane a percentage of my invention. I looked at her. You knew exactly what I built. You just didn't want anyone else to know. She couldn't look me in the eyes. My mother quietly reached across the table. I'm sorry. I should have defended you years ago. I squeezed her hand. I appreciate the apology. But silence has consequences. Some relationships heal slowly. Others never fully recover. A few weeks later, Landon called me. He thanked me for never asking him to choose sides. He'd ended his engagement with Sloane, not because she wasn't successful, but because she built their future on someone else's truth. Trust, once broken, is hard to rebuild. Months later, I stood on a stage, speaking at a pediatric patient safety conference. Behind me, my name appeared on the screen. Brielle Carter, inventor, SafeLatch pediatric connector. No one introduced me as unemployed anymore. At the end of my presentation, I announced something new, a grant for young medical inventors, especially nurses, technicians, and women whose ideas are often overlooked. Helping others felt far better than proving anyone wrong. As people were leaving, my mother quietly hugged me. She smiled through tears. I'm proud of you. I smiled back. I wish I'd heard that when I needed it most. Neither of us said another word. Sometimes, silence finally means understanding. For years, my family thought success meant a job title, a corner office, or an expensive house. They never understood mine, because it didn't look like theirs. One question at a dinner table didn't change who I was. It simply forced everyone else to stop pretending they didn't know. For years, they called me unemployed because they couldn't understand a life that didn't need their approval. In the end, They didn't remember my job title. They remembered my name.